Ability+decisive killing+non-toxic points+no female lead+no sword. Throughout the text, 1,000 years after the outbreak of nuclear war, spiritual energy revived, and humanity rebuilt cities on the ruins. With the rapid development of the spiritual world, spiritual afflictions arise, fear and unknown spread, and humanity gradually retreats to the remaining 5 main cities to barely survive. In this world full of despair, one by one desperate human beings fight to the death for survival, seeking answers to a new world. The world is like a huge color palette, illuminated by the golden sun. A touch of extreme darkness illuminates not the end of the abyss, but the hope for the future. Can you find a way out? Many people ask like this. The black light flickered in the angry eyes. Lu Fansheng did not speak, but tightened his weapon in his hand. If there is no future, that's the future. Chapter 1. Surprise. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. East Linhai City, Dida. Dida. A light rain is drizzling in the gloomy sky. At the end of the street, a boy is standing at an outdoor station in the rain. The boy was wearing only a pair of shorts woven from brown linen, allowing the rain to wet his naked body and black hair. He has been standing here for half an hour now. It shouldn't be. The boy's name is Lu Fansheng. Of course, this is his name after his travels. In his past life, he was a nationally commissioned diver who was specifically responsible for following a team to salvage lost ancient cultural relics. The characteristic of this profession is that it is very passionate, and you never know what you will find before going into the sea, filled with surprises everywhere. Of course, this time it was a bit too surprising. At a reef near the seabed, Lu Fansheng saw a black square resembling a cultural relic. The black square emitted a strange light, like a star in the deep night, flowing with its radiance. Lu Fansheng unconsciously reached out his hand. But when he touched the square, a huge sea beast suddenly appeared and swallowed him alive. When he woke up again, he appeared naked on the beach. Picking up a tattered pair of coarse cloth shorts to wear, Lu Fansheng began to contemplate life. I wouldn't have traveled after death, would I? As a modern man in the 21st century and a trendsetter of the internet, Lu Fansheng soon accepted the fact that he had passed through. He traveled to a brand new world. A world vastly different from the past. The owner of this body, also known as Lu Fansheng, is 17 years old and a resident of Linhai City who lives with his grandparents all year round. He makes a living by fishing. Of course, if you ask him why he doesn't go to school, because there is no concept of going to school in this world. In the memories sorted out by Lu Fansheng, the material that drives the operation of this world is a substance called spiritual energy. Speaking of psychic energy, it's amazing. It can serve as electricity in daily life, oil in daily life, and nuclear energy in daily life if there is nuclear energy in life. Of course, the omnipotent resource of spiritual energy, such as qi in liquid, is very expensive. Even Lu Fansheng, who grew up in Linhai City, has never really seen it a few times. As fishermen, Lu Fansheng and his grandfather have to work hard for 2 years to earn a spiritual coin containing weak spiritual energy. Looking down at the oversized shorts that were about to slip off, Lu Fansheng reluctantly clenched the extra corners of his pants and tucked them into his waist. Let's make do for it first, just change clothes when we get home. The young man has a handsome appearance, with handsome eyebrows and eyes, a straight nose bridge, a sharp and angular face, and thick black hair. His sparse bangs partially cover his deep eyes. But due to year-round malnutrition, the body is very thin and weak. The autumn rain hitting his body made Lu Fansheng tremble subconsciously. The others waiting at the station looked at the young man standing at the front with different expressions. Due to year-round fishing, Lu Fansheng's body was more or less contaminated with a fishy smell. A wealthy woman wearing an expensive coat and holding a pink umbrella, holding her poodle, frowned as she watched Lu Fansheng, covering her nose and saying, "Where the hell are you, little brat? You don't even wear clothes when you go out. You still smell so strong on your body." The man next to him, dressed in a British-style windbreaker, also spoke up. This station is in the direction of Fisherman's Ferry, and most likely it's from there. Ujiadu, located in the northeast corner of Linhai City, is conceptually similar to a city village. Due to the planning in the city, fishermen who make a living by fishing live there and have to commute between the coast and their place of residence every morning. If you don't want to wake up early, you can also take a free steam bus in the early morning, which is exactly what Lu Fansheng is waiting for. The entire area of Linhai City is very large, and if we rely solely on foot strength, we cannot travel through all the urban areas in 10 days and 10 nights. Listening to the sarcasm behind him, Lu Fansheng didn't speak, and there wasn't even a ripple on his face. Not arguing with fools is the purpose of Lu Fansheng. He can't bring up interest in arguing with them about such boring things, let alone mentioning social anxiety and so on. Seeing that Lu Fansheng had no response, the woman's eyebrows furrowed even tighter and she cursed, "Auntie is really unlucky to come and take this bus. If you encounter such a thing, I'll tell you, kid. If you dare to get on the bus, I'll have the driver drive you out." The woman was very angry and kept roast behind Lu Fansheng. Many people were watching coldly and kept silent. "Sigh, why bother a child?" A kind voice accompanied by rustling came. Feeling the warmth emanating from his shoulders, Lu Fansheng glanced slightly. A kind old lady was taking off her scarf and draped it over her body. Lu Fansheng whispered a thank you. The old man smiled slightly and looked at the woman with a disdainful expression, saying, "This poor child is about the same age as my grandson. Please kindly let him get in the car." Maybe she saw that Lu Fansheng had a helper, and the woman scolded roast a few words, but did not continue to pester. Everyone stood quietly in the rain waiting. Lu Fansheng observed the surrounding buildings and found that apart from the distant city walls, there were no tall buildings. This feeling is like in the early 20th century of the previous world, with a grayish-white and earthy brown color upon eye. He let out a slight sigh, unsure if this journey was lucky or unfortunate. A brown dilapidated bus, emitting thick steam, slowly drove over from a distance, accompanied by the sound of a whistle. The driver sitting in the car stretched out his head and shouted at the top of his voice. "The East Bank City Gate is here. The next stop is Fisherman's Crossing. Those who need to leave, hurry up and get on the bus." The bus stopped in front of everyone, and the woman holding the poodle put away her umbrella and got on the bus first. After she found a good seat to sit down, she kept muttering, "The free bus is really shabby, it's far inferior to a psychic car." Others didn't have the same disdain for women in the bus and gradually got on. Lu Fansheng stood at the back of the queue. When it was his turn, he stepped aside and helped the old man behind him onto the bus. The bus closed its doors and swayed towards the northeast. Lu Fansheng helped the old man to the last row and sat down, staring out the window at the scenery in a daze. "Young man, isn't it very cold?" The old man sat next to Lu Fansheng, flipped out a steaming hot sweet potato from the cloth bag on his arm, and handed it to Lu Fansheng. She had a kind smile on her face and said with some heartache, "Do you live at a fishing house? What about your parents? How could you have the heart to run out without wearing clothes?" Lu Fansheng took the sweet potato and felt the warmth it emitted. His Adam's apple moved and he said, "I haven't seen my parents before." What he said is true. In his previous memory, when Lu Fansheng began to remember, his grandparents told him that his parents had gone to work in a distant city. In the following 17 years, he never met his parents and even suspected that his grandparents were lying to him, while his own parents had already passed away. Upon hearing Lu Fansheng's words, the old man's expression of pity increased, and he reached out to grab Lu Fansheng's hand. What a pitiful child. The old man was simple and didn't know what to comfort for a moment, so the two of them sat silently. Lu Fansheng looked at holding his hand with some helplessness. "You keep holding on to me, how can I eat the roasted sweet potato you gave me?" Just as Lu Fansheng was pondering how to handle the food in his hand in a dignified manner, a conversation came from ahead. A middle-aged man dressed in an English-style trench coat sat in his seat, holding a newspaper in his hand and said to the crowd, "The new daily report released by the spiritual news agency today says that the east coast outside the city has detected the aura of rain. Now the spiritual investigation team has arrived." Everyone turned their heads upon hearing this, and an unconscious expression of panic appeared on their faces. Ling. The disaster of this world. I don't know how many years have passed since the emergence of spiritual energy in the world. The attributes of psionic energy are very powerful, and humans can use it to provide energy, as well as to make weapons. They even established a psionic bureau for this purpose, and the psionic investigation team is the executive department of the psionic bureau. But with the widespread use of spiritual energy, disasters also began to emerge. Mysterious and inexplicable spiritual energy spontaneously forms various incomprehensible creatures, and the characteristics of these creatures are terrifying, bloodthirsty, and unpredictable. They feed on humans and are natural enemies of humans, known as spiritual afflictions. According to historical records, humans fought against the Ling disaster for hundreds of years, but ultimately Ling emerged victorious and brought devastating blows to humanity. The remaining humans are concentrated within the only 5 main cities, connected to each other by spiritual trains, preserving the last spark of civilization. During this period, human control over spiritual energy became increasingly mature, until the emergence of spiritual seekers in Lu Fansheng's memory. He knew very little about the information of spiritual travelers, only knowing that they had abilities beyond ordinary people and bore the heavy responsibility of protecting human civilization. The words of the middle-aged man caused a considerable vibration in the carriage, and the passengers discussed with each other. Ling. No way, I haven't heard of Ling appearing in Linhai City for many years. Why don't you understand? They said there's a spiritual crisis on the coast outside the city. What's going on inside the city? It's good if there's no one in the city, it's good if there's no one. No, even if Ling is found outside the city, it's still on the east coast. How can we go out to sea now? Going out to sea. Even farting, I can't even catch fish. Upon hearing these words, Lu Fansheng was immediately taken aback. If Ling cannot catch fish on the coast, how should their family survive? The situation at home is difficult, and we rely solely on our grandfather and ourselves to catch fish to support our family. However, due to the frequent closure of the sea by the psychic board, the income from fishing is very meager. His family background belongs to the kind of situation where even mice sneak in and shed tears. If mice can speak, they may even curse at the poor not right. Thinking of this, Lu Fansheng's thoughts once again stirred up. Why do you appear on the beach on the coast after waking up? Did you go fishing with your grandfather yesterday? But what about Grandpa? Why isn't he by his side? Hey! A few days ago, I heard that there was a spiritual turmoil in Binnan City in the south for a while, and many people died. This time, we have started to stir up trouble here again, and the days have not stopped. Has there been no casualties on the east coast? I'm not sure, but the appearance of Ling is strange to immortals. I just hope to control it. Upon hearing this, Lu Fansheng suddenly stood up and looked at the middle-aged man speaking. What are you saying? Dead people on the east coast. The middle-aged man frowned and looked at Lu Fansheng, who was speaking. He didn't feel comfortable with the questioning tone and impatiently said, "Kid, did you understand what I was saying?" I'm not clear. Oh my, there are all fishermen on the east coast. Whatever you do, you'll die in vain. The noble woman, seeing Lu Fansheng speak, still harbored resentment towards him in her heart. At this moment, she said with a strange tone. Lu Fansheng ignored the woman's sarcastic remarks, and at this moment, his mind was filled with memories of his grandfather. Although he is a modern person who has traveled through time, he has inherited all the family ties in this world, and the nervousness in his heart cannot be faked. Now he just wants to hurry back home and see if the teapot in the cabin is still boiling water, and if his grandfather is taking a nap on the lounge chair. There are only 2 relatives, and he doesn't want his grandfather to be gone just after crossing over. The steam bus swayed along the muddy road, making a grunt sound. As the distance from Fisherman's Crossing approached, Fansheng could already see the smoke rising from many houses in the distance. The old man still held Fansheng's hand and stared at him kindly. "Are you homesick?" Seeing Fansheng frowning all the way, the old man felt his cold hands and comforted him kindly. "Silly boy, don't run out without clothes in the future." Fansheng nodded perfunctorily, his gaze still fixed on the outside of the window. His thoughts are all on his grandfather now, and the sweet potato in his hand has lost its warmth. The old man reached out and raised Fansheng's sweet potatoes in front of him, saying kindly, "Kid, Grandma's roasted sweet potatoes are all cold. Why don't you eat them? If you eat them, your body will warm up." Fansheng turned his head and looked gratefully at the old man, but there was still no movement in his hand. He spoke up and said, "Thank you, Grandma. My house is right ahead. Let's eat later when we get off the car." The old man sighed at the words, as if giving up some kind of plan, and whispered, "Hey. When it gets cold, it doesn't taste good anymore. If it gets cold, it won't taste good anymore. It's not delicious anymore." The old man's nagging words echoed in his ears, and Fansheng withdrew his thoughts and gave her a strange glance. I saw the old man lowering his head and facing him with a head of disheveled gray hair, unable to see the expression on his face clearly. After hesitating for a moment, Fansheng said, "Grandma, why don't you?" Before he could finish speaking, the old man sitting next to him suddenly lifted his head. A strange smile appeared on his wrinkled face, and he spoke in a hoarse voice. "It's getting cold. It's not delicious anymore." Chapter 2. Blood-Colored Carriage. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. The carriage was very noisy, and everyone was discussing the Linger incident on the East Coast. Sitting in the last row, Fansheng looked at the old man in front of him in surprise, with an inexplicable sense of panic in his heart. The old man's body trembled violently, and his mouth kept repeating the previous chatter. It's like the symptoms of a patient with epilepsy when they get sick. Fansheng was a bit scared. He had never seen such a disease before, so he could only probe and say, "Grandma, do you want to eat this sweet potato? If you want to eat, then." Speaking of which, Fansheng can no longer speak. Because the old man's pupils rolled up in an instant, leaving only an endless white color, a faint breath rose from her. In Fansheng's frightened gaze, the corners of the old man's mouth began to crack uncontrollably on both sides, and 2 rows of sharp teeth emerged, neatly arranged together. With the change of her mouth, her originally hunched body also began to rapidly expand, breaking through the cotton-padded jacket outside, and the seats on both sides of the crowded carriage made a piercing creaking sound. Her scalp seemed to have a huge grip, and her entire face began to be pulled towards the back of her head, with several wrinkles appearing on her face. No, that can no longer be called a face. In Fansheng's eyes, the kind-hearted old lady who had just turned into a humanoid monster with a bloody mouth in the blink of an eye. This monster has a huge brain and a smooth streamline that looks like a fish head, with dense spikes and scales growing behind it. Its 2 bulging black legs support her standing, emitting a transparent and nauseating aura. The monster turned into this in just a few seconds, causing others to look at it one after another. But when they saw the situation here clearly, they immediately let out a terrifying scream. "Monster! Monster! It's Ling! Ling! Damn it, why did Ling sneak into the city? What did the Ling investigation team do to eat? Driver, stop! Stop! Squeak!" A sudden brake sound sounded. In endless panic, the driver hurriedly opened the car door and then crawled out of his seat. Everyone crowded towards the car door like crazy, except for the two who had just escaped, the rest were blocked at the door. The commotion in the crowd did not catch the monster's attention. At this moment, the monster was dripping hot saliva from its mouth, looking at Lu Fansheng as if staring at prey. Lu Fansheng was stunned by this scene and his mind was a bit confused. What is the situation? What is this thing? Half of his legs were squeezed by the monster in the front seat. Lu Fansheng tried to move, but found that no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't break free. You can't be chaotic, you need to calm down at this time. Although he was not sure what had happened, Lu Fansheng remained calm and his eyes scanned everything around him that could save lives. But unfortunately, apart from the sweet potato in his hand, all he had left was a thick cloth underpants. Is it difficult for me to just cross over and die here? The monster's exhaled heat hit Lu Fansheng's face. A foul smell rushed out, making Lu Fansheng retch repeatedly. But the monster doesn't mind the disgust of the humans in front of it. The bloody and terrifying mouth opened, and the tightly packed teeth flickered with a fierce chill. The monster's big red pupils determined the position of Lu Fansheng, and then took a bite. Suddenly, Lu Fansheng, who had already given up struggling, flashed a black light like ink in his eyes. The light flashed away, even the change in his eyes that he himself had not noticed. But the monster saw it. After observing the light, its massive body immediately froze in place, as if a programmer's program had a bug while running, inexplicably stuck. The voices inside the carriage were noisy, unaware of the changes here, while Lu Fansheng was wondering why the monster was stuck. Does it want to eat the sweet potato in my hand? He scratched his head, suppressed the stench, and tried to put the sweet potato into the monster's mouth, but because the monster lowered its head, there was nowhere to place it. There is no way, Lu Fansheng can only stick the sweet potato between its teeth. Just then, the monster moved. But what Lu Fansheng imagined did not happen. After blinking its crimson eyes, the monster seemed to have not seen Lu Fansheng sitting underneath, moving his huge body towards the other end of the carriage. Mom! Ling is coming. Damn it! Don't be so blocked, let me out. Why doesn't Ling eat that kid? Can you let him delay for a while? There were discussions inside the carriage, and people rushed frantically towards the door. Finally, the middle-aged man who had previously spoken found a life hammer under the control panel, smashed open the sealed car window, and roared angrily, "Dude, are you so foolish? Don't you know how to jump out the window?" At this moment, everyone's intelligence was pulled back, and the passenger who was stuck behind immediately ran towards the car window. In the crowd, the woman's poodle had been trampled to death by the disturbed crowd, with its body exploding beneath a car seat. But at this point, the woman was no longer in the mood to care about her dog. She cursed and pushed away an elderly person who couldn't walk properly. She pushed her head out of the car window until she breathed in fresh air, which made her feel a little relieved. Damn it! I didn't look at the day when I went out today, and when I ran into you guys who are despicable, I could have met Ling in a car. If I had known. The woman spoke and suddenly felt there was no movement behind her. Her body, half stuck in the car window, slowly twisted and caught a glimpse of the scene inside the carriage. She only then realized why there was no sound. In the carriage, the person who was blocked behind had already been buried in the monster's mouth. The monster's speed is surprisingly fast, and its huge body does not hinder its movement, but instead provides it with tremendous power. The terrifying jaws tore through people's bodies, with blood and broken limbs scattered on the seats and lanes. With the violent shaking of the carriage, a large amount of blood began to shoot towards both sides, staining everything inside the carriage red, and a bloody purgatory formed in an instant. After a few breaths, except for the passengers who had already escaped from the carriage, only the woman and Lu Fansheng sitting behind were still panting. The woman felt that her heartbeat had never been so fast before. Under the stimulation of adrenaline, her consciousness became unprecedentedly clear. Looking at the monster approaching the car window, feeling the hot breath from the monster rushing towards her legs. She only had one thought in her heart at this moment. Escape. As long as she escapes from this terrifying bus, she can quickly summon a few spiritual guides to kill this monster and the stinky boy watching the play together, tear and tear. The sound of flesh and blood tearing sharply rang out. Sitting at the back of the carriage, Lu Fansheng saw the woman's fair thighs pierced and torn off by the monster's sharp teeth. Blood splattered throughout the entire carriage. Chapter 3. Zhao Lingxi. You are listening at novel full.audio. Wow. The rain at the end of autumn always comes quickly. The sky, which was originally drizzling with drizzle, quickly becomes densely covered with dark clouds. At the entrance of Huaimin village in the northeast corner of Linhai city, a broken bus is shaking in the rain. Rainwater mixed with blood flowed out through the cracks of the bus, staining the muddy road red. In the bus, the woman had already passed out due to the excruciating pain of her torn thigh, her body lying crooked and twisted on the window. A rough tearing sound followed by the sound of chewing. The monster with a humanoid fish head pulled off its fair thigh and swallowed the clothes on it in one gulp. Perhaps it was because women had a better taste, and a hint of contentment appeared in the monster's eyes. But in Lu Fansheng's eyes, this expression was truly terrifying. More than 10 innocent passengers just died so inexplicably. All of this happened too quickly, and before Lu Fansheng could react, he only saw blood and severed limbs in one place. The still wriggling intestines flowed out from the bitten lower abdomen, emitting a steaming heat. The monster lowered its head and buried it in the corpse, enjoying the delicacies of hunting one by one. Lu Fansheng forced himself to perk up and sat motionless in his seat watching the monster eat. At present, the car door ahead has been blocked by a monster, while the window next to him is still closed. Without a life hammer, with his thin and weak body, he couldn't break through the window and leave. His eyes quickly searched for the available props, and finally, under the pressure of his nervous system, Lu Fansheng discovered a bag of hardware tools under the nearby seat. The monster was still immersed in eating, and Lu Fansheng's gaze froze. He quickly bent down and took out a wrench from his bag. This bag of tools may have been left by a passenger who just died at a strange mouth, and Lu Fansheng has no plans to return it to him. He took a deep breath and stared fixedly at the car window beside him. The sound of the broken window will definitely attract the monster's attention, but considering everything that just happened, Lu Fansheng is not sure if the monster will attack him this time. He's gambling. Looking at the building outside the car window, Lu Fansheng planned an escape route. The bus stops at the entrance of Huaimin village. As long as you enter Huaimin, Lu Fansheng can successfully shake off monsters with his familiarity with the terrain. Not far from him, there is a blue stone wall piled up, perhaps the courtyard wall of a certain building. Having made up his mind, Lu Fansheng slowly shifted his gaze to the monster and saw that it was still immersed in eating. He took a deep breath and slowly raised the wrench in his hand. With a fierce gaze, the wrench slammed fiercely onto the car window. Bang! A loud collision sound sounded from the rear of the carriage. Lu Fansheng looked at the wrench in his hand, then glanced at the car window that only had white spots smashed out, and suddenly fell into a dazed thief. Your mother. Why is this car window so hard? Lu Fansheng is not sure if the car windows are hard or if he is too weak, but he has no time to verify. Slowly turning his head, he saw a monster that was also staring blankly at him. Sorry, the old man, it's disturbing you to eat. You continue. Continue. But luck did not always favor the youth. The monster was attracted by the sound made by Lu Fansheng and remembered that there was still a piece of food at the back of the car that had not been enjoyed. Immediately, it opened its huge mouth and ran towards Lu Fansheng. The monster was getting closer and closer, and Lu Fansheng could even clearly see the shredded meat on the monster's teeth and various organs in its mouth that had not been fully chewed. Really, are you going to die? Click and wipe. A tearing sound echoed from the roof of the car immediately after. with a loud bang, the entire bus was mercilessly torn apart by an inexplicable force and neatly cut off from the middle position. The bus started to brake in front of the monster, and the two unsupported carriages began to tilt towards the middle. Lu Fansheng was frightened by the sudden change and nervously supported the backrest of the front seat, stabilizing his figure. When he regained his senses, a golden figure suddenly flashed before his eyes. In another carriage, in front of a huge monster, stood a woman holding a knife. The woman appeared to be in her 20s and 40s, dressed in a tight black suit with a waist-length black shawl draped over her shoulders, perfectly outlining her graceful figure. Her long legs were particularly eye-catching. Her black hair was casually tied into a ponytail at the back of her head, revealing her fair and slender swan neck, appearing very elegant and capable. She held a long knife, with a single edge, and a thin layer of golden light attached to it, flickering and not dazzling. The monster seemed to have some fear of the woman, but in an instant, Lu Fansheng felt its fear disappear and roared angrily at the woman. The third level Ling has a really big temper. The woman's voice is very pleasant, even with a hint of coquettishness in her tone. But in this environment, this tone appears very disharmonious. Suddenly, the woman turned her head and looked at Lu Fansheng in a daze with a pair of wonderful eyes. A perfect oval face, fair skin, and clear and energetic pupils suddenly caught Lu Fansheng's eye. This woman is extremely beautiful, more beautiful than all the women that Lu Fansheng has ever seen. Especially the tear mole at the corner of a woman's eye, it is heart-wrenching. "Hey, silly kid without clothes." The woman's sudden shout stunned Lu Fansheng. He pointed to himself and asked with uncertainty, "Me?" The woman rolled her pretty eyes, clearly speechless towards Lu Fansheng. "You're the only living person left, not who you are. If you don't run anymore, you'll be eaten by the ugly fish-headed monster soon." Upon hearing this, Lu Fansheng immediately got up from his seat and ran towards the crack in the broken bus. Beautiful women are certainly beautiful, but their own lives are more important at the moment. Although it is unclear why a beautiful woman carrying a knife would appear on a steam bus on rainy days, it seems that Lu Fansheng has been saved. Squeezing out from the gap in the carriage, Lu Fansheng ran frantically towards the direction of Fisherman's Crossing, surviving the disaster. The sound of gold and iron interlocking and the roar of monsters came from the broken carriage, and the fierce battle caused the entire carriage to collapse to one side. As he ran, Lu Fansheng turned his head slightly to look behind him. Faint golden lights shot out through the carriage, followed by the screams of monsters. Suddenly, the top of the carriage broke again, and the woman in black jumped up from the carriage, with a black earphone still hanging in her ear. The fish-headed monster then rushed out and opened its bloody mouth, aiming at the woman, wanting to swallow it in one gulp. A golden light flashed past once again, and as Lu Fansheng ran, a crisp voice came from behind. The third-level spirit, the fish spirit, has been successfully cleared by Zhao Lingxi. Please answer. Chapter 4. Cold. It's not delicious anymore. You are listening at novel full.audio. The rain is getting less and less. The dark clouds gradually spread towards both sides of the sky, revealing a hint of blocked golden sunlight. In front of a small courtyard on Yujiada Changxiang Street, Lu Fansheng pushed open his own door with trembling hands. Creak. The sound of pushing the door rang out, and before Lu Fansheng could enter the room, a kind voice came from inside. Has Fansheng returned? Lu Fansheng rolled his Adam's apple, sorted out the panic expression on his face, and replied, "It's me, Grandma." Although he had experienced a series of strange things, Lu Fansheng did not want to tell his grandmother to avoid her worry. Just come back, there's still hot rice in the kitchen pot, don't forget to go eat. Before Grandma could finish speaking, Lu Fansheng ran quickly towards the small house on the west side. Standing in front of the cabin door, he hesitated for a moment before pushing open the door. Seeing the scene inside the house, Lu Fansheng breathed a sigh of relief. The furnishings inside the house are very outdated, with a bed, a cabinet, a lounge chair, and a wooden table being all the furniture. On the lounge chair, an old man with white hair and beard was swaying comfortably. He was wearing a white coat, holding a fan in his hand, and humming an unknown tune in his mouth. Noticing someone entering the room, the old man's half-closed eyes slightly opened and looked at Lu Fansheng at the door. "Stinky kid. Where did you go? You didn't even knock on the door when you entered. And you? Why don't you wear clothes? Playing hooliganism will catch the law enforcement team." The old man angrily cursed at Lu Fansheng, but still got up and opened the nearby cabinet to find clothes for him to wear. Lu Fansheng looked at the old man with stunned eyes, his lips curled, and for a long time, he slowly spoke two words. "Grandpa. Stinky kid. Do you still know that I'm your grandfather? Running out to play without even saying hello is causing your grandmother to worry so much. If you run out again in the future, look at the old man, I won't break your legs." The old man cursed and put on a black coat for Lu Fansheng, then urged him, "Go see your grandmother. She was worried all night last night and didn't sleep." After speaking, the old man took out the cigarette bag from his waist, lit it on his own, and lay back on the lounge chair. Leaving the cabin, Lu Fansheng finally breathed a sigh of relief. It seems that Grandpa did not go out to sea with him yesterday. But why did I appear alone on the beach? The situation is a bit eerie, but it seems that Lu Fansheng has lost his memory of yesterday, and no matter how he thinks about it, he cannot recall what happened. Shaking his head and clearing his mind, Lu Fansheng prepared to go and see his grandmother. In his family, his grandfather and he went out to sea fishing to maintain their livelihood, while his grandmother stayed at home all day, occasionally doing some needlework to exchange money at the nearby market. The common currency in Linhai City is made of gold, silver, and copper, and occasionally some Chamber of Commerce banknotes are used to exchange for coins. As for the spiritual energy coins mentioned earlier, they are not something that ordinary people can use in their homes, but rather as an energy source. The clothes woven by Grandma can only be exchanged for a few copper coins at the market, which cannot improve the situation at home. However, Lu Fansheng and Grandpa cannot resist and can only rely on her temperament. There is no other reason, because Lu Fansheng's grandmother has severe amnesia. It's strange to say that in the later stages of general amnesia, it is very likely to develop into dementia, but Grandma's symptoms are just a simple inability to remember time. Listening to the sound of the loom coming from inside the room, Lu Fansheng pushed open the door. The furnishings in the east room are more complete than those in the west room, but they are still very old. A earthen Kong stands at the head of the house, and my grandmother is sitting on it, slowly and skillfully weaving cloth. Seeing Lu Fansheng enter the room, the broad and chubby old man with a kind face smiled. She pulled down her reading glasses and said, "Fansheng, why don't you go eat yet?" Memories of 2 lifetimes flooded into his mind, and Lu Fansheng suppressed the tears in his eyes and said, "I just came home to see you, didn't I?" Grandma pursed her lips and said, "How could you be so pretentious? You go home every day, and it's not that you can't miss it. Listen, go eat now." Lu Fansheng nodded heavily and then walked towards the kitchen. The kitchen space is very small, except for the cabinets. There is an earthen stove where hot dishes are placed. Open the lid of the pot, and on the curtain of the stove, there is a large bowl of white rice and some stir-fried vegetables. In addition, there is a piece of sweet potato placed next to the bowl. Sweet potatoes. Lu Fansheng shook his head, cleared his bad memories, and then picked up the rice to enjoy it. A sound came from the door of the western room. Through the window, Lu Fansheng saw his grandfather walking towards the east room with a cigarette bag in his mouth, making occasional sounds of smashing and smashing, enjoying himself very much. After entering the east room, the sound came from afar. "Hey, this stinky kid, I don't know. Who made you smoke again?" Grandma's violent drinking spread from the east room, which frightened Lu Fansheng and made him almost lose control of the bowl in his hand. "Hey. Hee, just take a sip, just take a sip. Not even a bite. If you want to smoke, get out and smoke." Don't obstruct my eyes at home. Hey, you old lady, why are you so unreasonable? What are you saying? The next two didn't speak because Lu Fansheng heard a crackling sound in his grandfather's screams. Lu Fansheng let out a worried sigh, and after some thought, he decided not to get married in the future. The beating lasted for a while, and Grandpa's screams finally stopped. The conversation between the two continued. Oh my, old lady, you don't know how to be gentle. I'm so old that I can't resist being beaten. Come on, come on. After I finish weaving the fabric, you can take it to the market tomorrow to sell. Sell it. You remember the wrong day again. The market was completed yesterday. Where can we sell it? Let's wait for the next time. Ah. It ended yesterday. It broke down. What about my cloth? What should we do? Let's wait until next time. Grandpa picked up the cigarette stick in his hand and was about to take a few puffs when he suddenly remembered something. He could only reluctantly put it down and continued, Old lady, have you heard that the Spiritual Investigation Society has sealed the East Gate and is not allowed to leave the city? As soon as these words were spoken, Lu Fansheng heard the sound of the weaving shuttle falling. Subsequently, Grandma's sighs came out. Hey! How can we go out to sea if we don't allow ourselves to leave the city? The emergence of Ling has added insult to injury to this already financially disadvantaged family. Lu Fansheng knew he couldn't be of much help, so he decided to work hard and ponder in his mind. As a modern person who has traveled through time and is a top student of the 21st century, in this retro era, one should be able to find ways to make money. Thinking about it, the sound of Grandma's footsteps came from afar. Lu Fansheng stood up and watched his grandmother walk towards him, his heart warming. Grandma smiled and looked at Lu Fansheng, then looked at the food in the pot and frowned, saying, Why don't you eat sweet potatoes? Lu Fansheng wiped his mouth and was about to say something, but he suddenly froze in place. I saw that the old man's already cloudy eyes, black pupils instantly flipped up, leaving only a terrifying whiteness. Lu Fansheng's cold sweat was instantly aroused, and a chill permeated his entire back. A familiar voice rang in his ear. It's getting cold. It's not delicious anymore. Chapter 5, Spirit Source. Infinite Chaos. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Late at night, unlike the golden sun, the nights on this continent are very peaceful. The golden full moon hangs high in the sky, with a gentle breeze brushing against Linhai City, rolling up the air after the rain with a hint of sweetness. Blowing out the dim candlelight inside the room, a touch of moonlight shone through the papery window, illuminating the young man's face. Lu Fansheng lay quietly in bed, recalling everything that had happened today. Since waking up naked from the beach, this day has never stopped. First, he got on the deadly bus and met a cannibal monster. Then a beautiful woman appeared and saved herself. How can this kind of thing sound like it only happens in novels? As for what happened in the kitchen, it was all a hallucination of Lu Fansheng. The real situation is that Lu Fansheng was so shocked by his grandmother that his dishes fell to the ground, wasting his food and being chased and beaten by his grandfather. Of course, the old man was killed by the grandmother who protected the calf before he could succeed. Helpless, the grandmother who loved her grandson had to cook another meal for Lu Fansheng. Sorting through the memories in his mind, Lu Fansheng felt a bit empty. Leaving aside everything else, the most important thing now in front of us is survival. If unable to go out to sea, the family will lose their source of income. Perhaps we should go to the city tomorrow to see if we can find a suitable job. Unconsciously, Lu Fansheng felt the fatigue of the day and his eyes gradually closed. But he didn't notice, just as his eyes closed, a hint of extreme black flashed through his pupils. The golden and radiant land of living beings. The source of twins with endless reincarnation. A world of sinking and sleepless sin. The eternal and immortal infinity. Awakening the endless Lord of Chaos. Wake up. Wake up. A black thunderbolt accompanied by earth-shattering sounds split into the sky. Lu Fansheng suddenly opened his eyes and was about to curse something, but he was immediately stunned. Wherever he could see, everything was endless black. It's like a blind person trying to open their eyes in the dark, only to find that it's still a heart-stopping darkness. Is this a dream? Lu Fansheng's breathing gradually intensified, calmly examining the surrounding environment. He was lying on the black void, reaching out to touch, but couldn't touch anything. He slowly stood up and began to grope forward with heavy steps. Even he didn't realize it himself. At this moment, his eyes had lost their ordinary white color and turned into a pitch black like ink. Who's pretending to be a ghost? Come out. Lu Fansheng shouted loudly, using his voice to dispel the unknown fear in his heart. At this moment, he felt as if 10,000 grass mud horses had run through his heart. Since crossing over, nothing has happened smoothly. Finally, when his voice was hoarse and his strength was exhausted, a beam of light suddenly lit up in front of him. The beam of light, like the dim yellow light emitted by an old incandescent bulb, hit a confined spot, illuminating a narrow space. Under the light, a pitch-black substance slowly rises, like gas and liquid, constantly changing its form. Lu Fansheng's deep eyes were fixed on this mass of material, and his pitch-black pupils flickered from time to time. What is this thing? He said in confusion, but there was no voice to answer him. Finally, Lu Fansheng bravely extended his fingers and slowly approached the mass of material. Buzz. At the moment of contact between fingertips and matter, an invisible ripple slowly dispersed towards all sides. Black matter began to become violent and restless in an instant, with drastic changes in its image. Or become fierce beasts roaring. Or into undulating mountains. Or it may become a surging ocean. In short, all the violent things appeared once in front of Lu Fansheng. Finally, when matter came to a standstill, Lu Fansheng realized that it had turned into a terrifying abyss. The abyss carries infinite destructive power and forces towards Lu Fansheng, spreading fear throughout the entire dark space. The pitch black in Lu Fansheng's eyes became even more intense, and he could feel that his body, nerves, and everything was slowly being pulled away. This feeling its annihilation. The pain of tearing spread throughout his body, and Lu Fansheng shouted desperately, but couldn't make any sound. Just as Lu Fansheng felt that he was about to die, a white substance suddenly appeared in the darkness behind him. It's like being in a thick black mucus, forcefully squeezing in white mucus, very abrupt. White matter has the same texture as black matter, it constantly wriggles and changes, but what it brings is not a sense of annihilation, but endless vitality. The white substance launched a fierce attack on the black substance, and the two masses of matter blended together, colliding wildly. The fur of the giant beast is being torn. The jungle of the mountains is being ravaged. The vast sea is being stirred with anger. This feeling is like fighting. No, the description of the fight may not be appropriate enough, let alone a fight. I don't know how long it has been the black and white substances stopped trembling. It seems that the white substance has the upper hand, and it is very impressive that it presses the black substance underneath. Just like an elder, teaching stubborn children a lesson. The black material heart was dissatisfied and surged upwards, but ultimately it was because of its immaturity and powerlessness to resist. Finally, the black substance seemed to give up and stopped its own beating. The white substance slowly rose up, as if a gaze from nothingness was examining the loser. Finally, with a flash of white light, the white substance entered the dark space again like mucus and squeezed out. Under the incandescent light, the black material weakly returned to its previous position, as if nothing had happened. And Lu Fansheng was fainting below him. For a moment, the sound of breathing reappeared, and Lu Fansheng opened his eyes. The pitch black of his pupils was no longer as turbid as before, but instead revealed a slight clarity. Feeling great pain in his body, he rubbed his shoulders and stood up. What happened just now? Listening to his self-questioning and self-answering, no one answered his words. Did you do it? Lu Fansheng glared angrily at the black substance in front of him, and an unnamed flame rose in his heart. What is the situation? I was beaten by a black ball in my dream. Lu Fansheng was furious. Today, he really had 8 lifetimes of blood mold and could encounter anything. If he continues to swallow his pride like this, Lu Fansheng will have no face to see his ancestors underground again. But just as he wanted to teach black matter a lesson, a hint of information instantly entered his mind. Hello Mr. Lu Fansheng, welcome to the realm of the universe. Chapter 6. My mom asked me to borrow money. You are listening at novel full.audio. The sound suddenly rang out, and Lu Fansheng looked in surprise as the material in front of him shrunk into a small black dot. Who's talking in my head? No one answered Lu Fansheng's question, but the black spot in front of him began to expand violently. The expansion was very rapid, and in the blink of an eye, the black dot suddenly transformed into the appearance of Lu Fansheng. Lu Fansheng was stunned and looked at the person in front of him, as if looking in a mirror. He once again reached out his hand to touch Lu Fansheng, but was grabbed by himself across from him. Ghost, my grass. Lu Fansheng was so scared that he pulled out his finger. The person opposite him did not stop him, but allowed his actions. I am the chaos spirit source, I am everything in the world, I am you. Upon hearing this, Lu Fansheng, who wanted to escape, paused and said in confusion, Lingyuan. What is that? How could you possibly be me? Lu Fansheng, across from him, did not speak this time. He remained silent, seemingly entering a certain program. For a long time, Lu Fansheng's figure underwent another change, collapsing rapidly into the original black dots. Just as Lu Fansheng breathed a sigh of relief, the black dot flickered slightly and turned into something he didn't want to see. Roast sweet potatoes. You. What are you? Mr. Lu Fansheng, my image is a projection of the object in your heart. I have detected that you have been thinking about this thing all day, so the image in your heart is this object. Upon hearing the sound, a cold sweat flowed down Lu Fansheng's back. Did the roasted sweet potato talk? Can you change your appearance? Don't become me, don't become roasted sweet potatoes. At the end of the conversation, the roasted sweet potato moved slightly again and transformed into a human figure. Zhao Lingxi. Looking at the graceful beauty in front of him, Lu Fansheng twitched his lips. He will never admit that he has been thinking about this all day. However, the current image of Lu Fansheng is quite acceptable. Feeling that the black spot was not malicious, Lu Fansheng slowly sat down. And Zhao Lingxi, who was opposite him, also sat down following his movements. Tell me, what exactly are you? Upon hearing the question, Zhao Lingxi tilted his head lovingly and replied coquettishly, I am you. Lu Fansheng frowned and said, I'm not in the mood to argue with you. What exactly is the spiritual source you just mentioned? As a native of Linhai City, Lu Fansheng naturally heard of the term Lingyuan. Although he doesn't remember where he heard it from, the 17-year-old boy is full of curiosity about everything about spirituality. It seems that Zhao Lingxi during the day is a spiritual guide, and the knife in his hand can emit a golden light. Zhao Lingxi looked at Lu Fansheng and opened his lips lightly, saying, the source of spirit is the essence of spiritual energy, the fragments of rules, and the carrier of power. After saying this, before Lu Fansheng could speak, the figure of Zhao Lingxi in front of him suddenly began to become illusory. Under the surprised gaze of Lu Fansheng, Zhao Lingxi collapsed again into the black singularity. Wait. You. A strong tearing sensation arose, and Lu Fansheng suddenly felt that his soul seemed to be in a daze. When he opened his eyes again, he saw the ceiling inside his house. The morning rain and dew float on the dim yellow leaves of autumn, and the air is filled with a fresh mist. In the village of Yujiadu, many roosters have already started working early and crowed, reminding people to enter the day's work. Sitting inside the room, Lu Fansheng's eyes were confused, and he tightly gripped the corner of his own body with both hands. He felt a few Chinese characters appearing in his mind, as if they were suddenly engraved in his mind. First level Spirit Pathfinder Lingyuan. Infinite Chaos. Not only that. When Lu Fansheng's mind moved, the words in his mind suddenly changed. First Order Spiritual Source Chaos Skills Possessed. Infernal Realm Skill Effect. Chaotic and unknown spiritual energy that can annihilate all things that should not exist. Annihilated objects can be detained in the realm of the universe and become a part of chaos. Attention! Chaos Spirit Source constantly feels hunger and needs to be fed in a timely manner. The current hunger value is 80%. Feeling the introduction in his mind, Lu Fansheng was confused. He sorted out his thoughts and linked all the information he had collected. That is to say. Lu Fansheng extended a finger, his mind twitched, and a layer of black, liquid-like substance instantly covered it. Spirituality. I have become a spiritual guide. Although I don't know what happened, I always feel very powerful. Upon waking up, in addition to a large amount of information in his mind, Lu Fansheng felt that his body was also full of power. If he encounters something like yesterday again, this time he has confidence to smash open the car window with a wrench. Power is only one aspect, and with the emergence of spiritual energy, even the fishy smell on oneself has decreased significantly. An inexplicable smile appeared at the corner of Lu Fansheng's mouth. He couldn't wait to use his spiritual power again. This time, the black psychic power did not cover his palm, it only covered the range of 2 fingers. With the use of spiritual energy, Lu Fansheng's head also felt dizzy and heavy. No, it seems that one cannot forcefully use spiritual power. After calming down, Lu Fansheng accepted reality, collected his spiritual energy, and prepared to wake up. But when he unconsciously checked his mind, he found that the originally marked hunger level had dropped directly to 79%. Lu Fansheng frowned. Why does hunger decrease after just using it? What if hunger drops to 0? What happens when you're full? But what should I eat again? If you're hungry, you have to eat. Outside the window, an excited voice came. Lu Fansheng turned his head and found that it was his grandfather who had already woken up, practicing Tai Chi in the courtyard to strengthen his body. If he doesn't have that cigarette bag in his mouth, 1 whip, 2 whips, 3 whips. If you're hungry, you have to eat. Only when you're full can you work. Old lady, do you understand? Upon hearing Grandpa's voice, Grandma's screams and curses came from the kitchen. Damn old man. With the city locked down, it's impossible to fish now. If you don't find something to do quickly, you'll have to urge me to get up early in the morning to cook. Why don't you starve to death? If you want to eat, make it yourself. Grandpa sneered and retorted, Humph, old man, I am the most skilled fisherman in the fishing industry. When we go out to sea, everyone relies on me to take them fishing. Even if we don't have any income now, just relying on my old man's popularity, our whole family won't starve to death. As soon as the words fell, a young man's voice came from outside the fence of the small courtyard. Grandpa Lu. Are you at home, Grandpa Lu? Grandpa gave a provocative look at the kitchen, as if saying, look, someone will be delivering food soon. Mr. Lu. Mr. Lu, please answer at home. My mom asked me to borrow money. Chapter 7. Zhang Huaimin. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Upon hearing these words, the old man who was practicing Tai Chi suddenly stopped and almost twisted his waist. Clear mocking laughter also came from the kitchen. Mr. Lu walked to the entrance of the yard and angrily opened the door. Looking at the young man standing in front of him, the old man blew his beard and glared angrily, saying, Silly kid. Can you make such a fuss about borrowing money? Zhang Huaimin at the door chuckled and two dimples appeared on his shy face. Mr. Lu patted his shaved smooth flat head and then looked around. Seeing no one around, he pulled Zhang Huaimin in. Stinky kid, let me know if you have anything. Zhang Huaimin entered the courtyard, and Lu Fansheng happened to close the door and walk out. Zhang Huaimin laughed and said, Brother Fansheng, you're at home. Lu Fansheng nodded, recalling memories of the person in front of him in his mind. Zhang Huaimin, the son of the Zhang family from a fishing family, passed away early and relied on his mother to make a living by selling firewood. Sometimes he also worked as a laborer, making him a poor family. If Lu Fansheng and his family cried when mice entered, Zhang Huaimin's family would have to give away 2 grains of rice when mice entered, and then turn around and commit suicide when they went out. Zhang Huaimin was 2 years younger than Lu Fansheng. He grew up with Lu Fansheng from a young age and followed him as a child, shouting, Brother Fansheng. He had a childhood relationship and was also Lu Fansheng's only friend. Seeing Lu Fansheng and nodding towards him, Zhang Huaimin chuckled and then spoke up, My mom said, now that the eastern city gate is closed and we can't go out to sea, our situation is very tense. But by this time, my family has run out of rice, so I came to borrow some from Mr. Lu. After speaking, Zhang Huaimin looked at Mr. Lu and loudly promised, My mom said, I promise to return it to the market next week. Oh, stinky kid, you can keep your voice down, said Mr. Lu, silently supporting his forehead. You come with me, I'll go to the kitchen and get you some money. Seeing Zhang Huaimin following behind the old man Lu Fansheng felt amused as he watched the scene. Mr. Lu has lived for such a long time, and the most valuable thing on his body is probably his cigarette holder. The financial power of the family is all in the hands of his grandmother. In no time, Zhang Huaimin came out of the kitchen with a smile, holding a small bag in his hand, probably 100 copper coins lent to him by his grandmother. Zhang Huaimin did not leave immediately, but instead came to Lu Fansheng and carefully scrutinized him with a pair of clear eyes. Lu Fansheng was looked at with some hair on his face and asked in confusion, What are you staring at me for? He, Brother Fansheng. I feel like you've become more handsome. Upon hearing this, Lu Fansheng broke out in a cold sweat and confirmed that Zhang Huaimin in his memory was not a pervert. Then he spoke up and said, Get out of here, young master. I've always been so handsome, okay? Really, Fansheng is much more handsome than a few days ago. As Zhang Huaimin spoke, he seemed to remember something and suddenly spoke, By the way, Brother Fansheng. We can't go out to sea now. What do you plan to do? Upon hearing these words, Lu Fansheng unconsciously sighed, which was exactly what troubled him. Losing the means to make a living is a deadly thing in this world. Although he has now become a spiritual guide, apart from being able to release finger-sized spiritual energy, other Lu Fansheng have no idea and it is unlikely that he can survive on this. And for other jobs, Lu Fansheng hasn't figured it out yet. Seeing that Lu Fansheng's eyebrows and eyes were lowered and he didn't speak, Zhang Huaimin smiled and said, Brother Fansheng, I knew you had nothing to do. Why don't you come find a job with me? Find a job, Lu Fansheng frowned. What job? Upon hearing Lu Fansheng answer, Zhang Huaimin excitedly pulled out a crumpled piece of paper from his arms and handed it to him, then spoke up, A few days ago, a spiritual investigation team came to Fisherman's Crossing and posted a notice on the signboard at the village entrance. I took off one and you took a look. The compensation above is very generous. Lu Fansheng opened the notice and saw the content clearly. There are many words written on the notice, which roughly means that the Spiritual Energy Bureau has discovered a spiritual energy mine outside the city. Now, manpower is needed to mine it, and the reward is about 10 silver coins per day. 100 copper coins can be exchanged for 1 silver coin, and 100 silver coins can be exchanged for 1 gold coin. 10 silver coins are enough for Lu Fansheng and Grandpa to catch fish for 2 months during the peak season. Despite the generous compensation, the demands above are also very complex. Firstly, a physical examination is required, and one must also observe 3 levels of integrity. Without a law enforcement team record, the age cannot exceed 40 years old. The most crucial thing is that there is a small line of text at the bottom of the notice, which actually says death benefits. Day. Why does mining include death benefits? Lu Fansheng held the notice and thought for a moment, but did not speak. Although the remuneration is generous, judging from this posture, the danger is also high. Fansheng. Seeing that Lu Fansheng was silent, Zhang Huaimin asked softly, "Are you worried about the danger?" "It's okay. I asked the investigation team. If we go, we just need to mine, don't worry about anything else, and the Psychic Bureau will send an investigation team to protect us." Protection. Lu Fansheng's gaze darkened. Since his past life, he has been clear about a principle. No one will count what they promise you, except for themselves. He doesn't believe that in danger, these members of the psychic investigation team will protect a group of poor people. But Lu Fansheng didn't say it to death. After all, the temptation of 10 silver coins is too great. After thinking for a moment, he said, "Huaimin, give me this notice first. I'll consider it. The sun rises 3 times and it's time for lunch." Zhang Huaimin looked at the sun, then gave a shy smile to Lu Fansheng and said, "Brother Fansheng, I'll leave first. When you think it over, come find me." As he walked to the door, Zhang Huaimin didn't forget to remind him, "Brother Fansheng, the investigation team is scheduled to bring people in a month. Don't be too late." "Got it." When Zhang Huaimin walked out of the courtyard with his money bag, his grandmother's lunch had just been prepared. Coming out of the kitchen, Grandma wiped her oily hands with her apron and looked out, saying, "Where's Huaimin? How did he get there? Fansheng, why don't you leave him to eat?" "Oh, he's not hungry." "Really? Old man. Bring the food to the house." Under the command of his grandmother, Mr. Lu became much more honest, busy with his meals in the kitchen. Lu Fansheng is also preparing to return to the room and study his spiritual abilities. He is not yet clear about what the infernal realm is. After the rain, due to the lack of steam facilities, the air in Yujiadu is actually fresher than in the urban area of Linhai City. Stop. A sound of brakes sounded in the long alley, and people who were preparing to work curiously stretched out their heads to look around. In front of a small courtyard, a brand new black sedan is parked here. The car disconnected its psychic power device and 3 people got off the car. 2 women and 1 man. Zhao Lingxi wore a black tight-fitting suit, and a waist-length black cloak fell from his shoulders. Her spirited eyes lifted their gaze and looked into the courtyard, then she spoke softly. That's it. Chapter 8. Spiritual Investigation Team Visits. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The 2 women and 1 man at the door attracted the attention of nearby residents. Zhao Lingxi is tall, standing at 1.72 meters in front of the 2, clearly the leader. Behind her was a young girl who looked about the same age as Lu Fansheng. She was wearing a British-style black dress, fitted with stockings and pants, and had delicate black high heels on her feet. Her skin is fair, her long hair is tied into 2 curled braids distributed on both sides of her ears, her cheong nose and cherry lips, and her large eyes are particularly lively. The man who acted as the last driver to get off the car looked like he was 20.1 or 12 years old, with a long expressionless face and wearing a black British coat. As Zhao Lingxi spoke, the lovely girl, who was like a porcelain doll, asked in confusion, "Sister Lingxi, is this the family?" Zhao Lingxi nodded and was about to say something when a voice came from the small courtyard. "Who's outside the door? Come in straight in, the door's not closed." With the owner's permission, Zhao Lingxi and the 2 of them pushed the door open and entered the hospital. As soon as they entered the yard, the 3 of them saw Mr. Lu standing in the yard with a plate of sweet potatoes. "Oh!" Grandpa Lu exclaimed in surprise, quickly putting down the sweet potatoes and welcoming them. "Aren't these adults from the investigation team?" What's the point of visiting our humble abode? Zhao Lingxi and his 3 companions were dressed in the uniforms of the spiritual investigation team, which can be easily seen at a glance. Zhao Lingxi smiled slightly at the old man and took out the identification of the spiritual investigation team from his pocket to show it. He said, "Hello old man, I am Zhao Lingxi, the deputy captain of the spiritual investigation team's Kuei Wu team. I came here to find Lu Fansheng." Zhao Lingxi was swift and decisive in handling affairs. As soon as he entered the door, he expressed his purpose and added, "We're not adults, so don't be so polite." Upon hearing that he was looking for Lu Fansheng, the old man frowned and said, "Looking for my grandson. Did that stinky kid do something? If he commits a crime, adults, you can arrest the old man and take the blame, and spare this kid's life." After listening, Zhao Lingxi's face showed a helpless expression. "Grandpa, no, we're here to ask Mr. Lu Fansheng about yesterday's Ling disaster." The expressionless tall and cold man also spoke up at this moment. "If it's a crime, it should also be the law enforcement team of Linhai City coming to arrest people. We only focus on psychic events." Zhao Lingxi glanced at Gao Lingnan and complained that he was speaking recklessly. Sure enough, upon hearing these words, old man Lu's face showed a hint of despair. "What? What are you talking about? My grandson has committed an incident about spirituality." Zhao Lingxi and the other 3 helped each other, so they had to continue explaining to the old man. Before he could speak, the voice of the old man came from inside the house. "Dead old man. They said they only focus on psychic events, so don't embarrass me if you're deaf." Grandma opened the door and walked out of the room, then smiled and walked up to the 3 of them. "Ladies and gentlemen, are you here to find my grandson?" Zhao Lingxi breathed a sigh of relief and nodded when he saw that someone could finally communicate normally. "Is Mr. Lu Fansheng at home?" Grandma smiled and didn't answer Zhao Lingxi's words. Instead, she asked, "Can I ask what I'm doing with him? By the way, didn't you just come to the fisherman's ferry a few days ago to recruit people?" "Why? Grandma, did you remember the wrong time again? The psychic investigation team came to recruit minors half a month ago. Use your reminder." Seeing the 2 elderly people fighting again, Zhao Lingxi quickly said, "Grandparents, we have nothing else to do with finding Lu Fansheng. It's just that a spiritual creature appeared at the entrance of the fishing village yesterday. Mr. Lu Fansheng is a witness. We are here to investigate and gather evidence from him." Upon hearing that his grandson had not committed any wrongdoing, old man Lu breathed a sigh of relief and said, "Well, that's okay. I'll call him for you. Are you here to find me?" During the conversation, Lu Fansheng pushed open his own door and stood on the steps. After Zhao Lingxi and the others got off the car, Lu Fansheng sensed their arrival. Due to last night, Lu Fansheng felt that his 5 senses had become more sensitive and his hearing was extremely strong. And just now he hasn't come out, he's also tinkering with his spiritual energy. It's okay if you don't make a fuss. With such a fuss, the hunger level of Lingyuan has decreased by 1% again, to 78%. Looking at the handsome young man standing at the door, Zhao Lingxi smiled and the tear mole at the corner of his eye moved slightly, causing Lu Fansheng's heart to tremble. "Hello Mr. Lu Fansheng, we have met again." Zhao Lingxi took out his identification again and showed it, saying, "Regarding yesterday's incident, Mr. Lu Fansheng was fully involved. We would like to ask for your cooperation in the investigation." Lu Fansheng nodded but did not speak. "What a cold person, big ice, just like you." The cute girl tiptoed up and whispered a word in the cold man's ear. The tall and cold man continued to remain expressionless, as if he had not heard. Lu Fansheng's indifferent response solidified the atmosphere in the small courtyard. Zhao Lingxi unconsciously twitched at the corner of his eye, feeling a bit embarrassed. Mr. Lu came out to warm up and said, "In that case, let's invite a few people inside to talk." Zhao Lingxi breathed a sigh of relief and went to the east room with the 2 people behind him and the landing old man. Lu Fansheng followed suit. After entering the east room, Zhao Lingxi glanced at the furnishings inside and glanced at Gao Lingnan without leaving a trace. The cold-hearted man nodded and then took out a pen and paper from his pocket to start recording. A few people. Mr. Lu placed the food on the table and pointed to a plate of sweet potatoes, asking, "Do you want to have some first?" Zhao Lingxi smiled and said, "Grandpa, we'll leave after we finish the task." After the crowd entered the room, Lu Fansheng shivered when he saw sweet potato. He then sat on a stool and said, "Ask whatever you want. I'll tell you everything I know. The investigation has begun." Zhao Lingxi pulled up a stool and sat opposite Lu Fansheng, asking, "Hello Mr. Lu Fansheng, yesterday at 1:30 p.m., you boarded the steam bus from the east of the city to Ujiatu. Where did you go before that?" Upon hearing this, Lu Fansheng was taken aback. He did not expect Zhao Lingxi to start asking questions from this step. Zhao Lingxi, who had entered the working state, seemed to have changed her face. The original gentle feeling of being a big sister had disappeared, and she was replaced by an iceberg beauty. Lu Fansheng's Adam's apple moved and he spoke, "I came back from the beach outside the city." Upon hearing these words, the expressions of the three members of the psychic investigation team changed slightly. Zhao Lingxi continued to ask, "Why did you come back from outside the city?" "I am a fisherman, so naturally I go fishing." "Where's the fish?" "The fish are in the warehouse outside our city." "How much did you hit?" "I'm not sure, there's no calculation." "Did you see anything while fishing?" "I haven't seen it, everything is normal." Zhao Lingxi asked here and stared at Lu Fansheng, unsure of what he was thinking. The room was surprisingly quiet, with only the sound of a tall and cold man writing on paper. Looking at Lu Fansheng with a calm face, Zhao Lingxi slowly said, "Mr. Lu Fansheng, I hope you can ensure the authenticity of our answers." Chapter 9. Rest assured to go. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. The fishing boat at noon is very peaceful. Cooking smoke rose from the chimneys of every household, as if the bloody scene at the village entrance yesterday had not affected the lives of the residents at all. In the east room, Lu Fansheng looked at Zhao Lingxi's trembling eyelashes and said calmly, "I can guarantee that everything I say is true." Zhao Lingxi nodded and prepared to continue questioning. But at this moment, Mr. Lu's angry voice rang out. "Stinky kid. Answer honestly, don't lie. This is from the psychic investigation team." "What captain?" "Zhao Lingxi." "Oh yes, Deputy Captain Zhao." "Kid, please speak up quickly." Looking at Mr. Lu's demeanor, those who didn't know thought he was interrogating Lu Fansheng. Zhao Lingxi's expression on his face couldn't hold, and he said helplessly, "Don't be so nervous, old man. We just asked casually." "No way." Mr. Lu's voice suddenly rose and he looked fiercely at the three members of the investigation team. "Investigation and interrogation. You must be rigorous. How can you be casual?" Lu Fansheng. "Oh mouth oh." Three members of the investigation team. Zhao Lingxi hesitated for a while and held back three words. "I know." Mr. Lu nodded in satisfaction and immediately sat back on the con. But before he could sit still, a loud slap suddenly echoed through the cabin. Pop. "Old man never dies. What kind of mouth are you, making you stand out? Oh, old lady, can you give me some face in front of outsiders? Face saving. You treat my grandson like a criminal. You. The old man and the old woman were chattering blood in the east room, and the three members of the investigation team were trembling with fear. Lu Fansheng was already used to it and said calmly, "Keep asking." Grandpa just said something very strange, and of course Lu Fansheng understood. Clearly, he was afraid that the members of the investigation team would scare him, so he specifically spoke out to cheer. At the end of the day, Zhao Lingxi was just a young man in his 20s. Being stirred up by the elderly, his previously accumulated power was immediately discouraged. His tone softened and he spoke, "Okay. Cough, investigation continues. Mr. Lu Fansheng, we have temporarily put the matter outside the city on hold. Now we need you to explain to me what happened on the bus." After listening, Lu Fansheng recounted yesterday's situation. Grandma's heart trembled when she heard this. She didn't expect her beloved little grandson to have experienced such a terrifying event, and she repeatedly scolded old man Lu for not taking good care of Lu Fansheng. Mr. Lu lit his cigarette bag and smoked it without saying a word. That's all I have to say. The narration of Lu Fansheng ends. He did not conceal anything except for the fact that he had spiritual power. The aloof man meticulously recorded, while the cute girl in a black dress nodded frequently, seemingly analyzing Lu Fansheng's words. After hearing this, Zhao Lingxi first remained expressionless, then her beautiful eyes narrowed slightly, revealing a hint of cunning. "Mr. Lu, is what you just described the entire process?" Lu Fansheng nodded. "But why is it different from the version I heard?" "What?" Lu Fansheng frowned and asked in confusion, "What's different?" "Yesterday, in addition to a few passengers who got off and escaped first, there was also one who survived. We found something different from you last night based on her description." "Are there any surviving passengers?" Lu Fansheng widened his eyes. How could this be? Even in that carriage suddenly, he remembered. At that time, the woman who jumped out of the window and escaped only had one thigh pulled off by the monster, and did not eat her all. What did she say? Lu Fansheng's tone unconsciously revealed a sense of panic. Zhao Lingxi chuckled inwardly. "After asking you for so long, I finally feel anxious." She coughed lightly twice and said slowly, "The survivor said that when the monster woke up, it was sitting next to you. According to Ling's bloodthirsty habit, you had no chance of surviving. But as far as the woman could see, the monster didn't eat you at first, but ignored you and walked towards the front of the carriage. What is your explanation for this?" Upon hearing this, Lu Fansheng breathed a sigh of relief. He thought that woman was some kind of hidden boss, and immediately sensed that he had spiritual power. So it's just this one. I don't know why, but Lu Fansheng strongly opposes mentioning that he possesses spiritual power. That feeling is like it's like hiding more comfortable. There's no explanation. How do I know why the monster didn't eat me? Lu Fansheng spoke lightly and regained his calm demeanor. Zhao Lingxi looked at Lu Fansheng's reaction and felt a bit confused. He didn't know why he had changed so much, so he could only continue to ask, "Are you really not explaining?" "Perhaps," said Lu Fansheng. "Perhaps because I'm handsome." Click and wipe. The pencil that Gao Leng was writing with broke, causing him to pause and take out another one from his pocket. The cute girl in a black dress also rolled her eyes at this moment. Why is this person even more narcissistic than the captain? Although he is indeed quite handsome, Zhao Lingxi twitched his lips and said with difficulty, "I'm sorry, Mr. Lu. Based on our understanding of Ling, they do not possess human aesthetics. Being good-looking is at best a delicious-looking food in their eyes, making it easier to eat. So, your explanation is not valid." Zhao Lingxi rejected Lu Fansheng's speech in just a few words, making him feel a bit insecure. Is it true that monsters don't eat me because I'm not handsome enough? Then I don't know. Lu Fansheng shrugged and started playing rogue tactics. Seeing that there was no news to be asked, the three members of the Kuei Wu team glanced at each other. He, female child, finished asking. Mr. Lu stood up from the Kong and stuffed one hot sweet potato for each of the three of them, then spoke. My little grandson is too timid to cause trouble. If anything bad happens, it's definitely not him who did it. Gentlemen, rest assured. As he spoke, old man Lu carefully scrutinized Zhao Lingxi's face and muttered, "Oh my, what a beautiful girl. It would be great if she could be my grandson's daughter. In law. Zhao Lingxi looked embarrassed and felt a bit at a loss holding the sweet potato. The other two were holding back their laughter from behind, and the icy face of the tall and cold man couldn't hold its tension at this moment. What are you talking about, old man? Grandma Lu got off the Kong and slapped Grandpa Lu on the back of the head, apologizing. I'm sorry, girl, I've made you feel embarrassed. Do you have anything else to do? If not, why don't you stay and have a bite to eat? Zhao Lingxi recovered and smiled. Of course, the elderly, our investigation is not over yet. Grandma Lu was taken aback and said in confusion, oh. Then you keep asking, keep asking. Zhao Lingxi wrapped his hands around his neck, grabbed his somewhat scattered black hair into a bundle, and then tied a ponytail with a band on his wrist. He slowly said, next, we would like to invite Mr. Lu to the base of the spiritual investigation team to cooperate with the investigation. No way. Grandma Lu's smile froze on her face, and Grandpa Lu also shouted loudly, no way. Where is your psychic investigation team base? How can my grandson get there? No matter how you investigate, you shouldn't have found us civilians' bodies. My grandson is also a victim, and I will never allow you to inflict a second emotional harm on him. Mr. Lu's words were resounding and powerful, echoing in everyone's ears for a long time. The entire East Room was quiet, immersed in Grandpa Lu's great family affection. That. Suddenly, the tall and cold man who had been silent spoke. There is a reward. How much? A psychic coin. Grandpa Lu. Fansheng, go ahead. Lu Fansheng. Cough. Grandpa Lu walked behind Lu Fansheng, picked him up from the chair and pushed him outside, then spoke up, it's okay, the Spiritual Energy Bureau is an official organization that cares about the people. I believe they won't do anything bad to you. Fansheng, you can rest assured to go. By the way, when will you give me the psychic coins? The girl in a black dress suppressed her smile and covered her mouth, saying, Lu Fansheng can bring it when he comes back. Then you go quickly. Grandpa Lu kicked out Lu Fansheng, who was holding the door. Watching Grandpa turn around and the three people walking towards him, Lu Fansheng looked hopeless. Stinky kid, cooperate well with the investigation. Remember to give me the psychic coins when you come back. Chapter 10. Entering the coastal area. You are listening at novel full.audio. De co lois ara trong quatrin lay text.